Hi, I'm Chris Muchler, Principal Enterprise Architect and VCDX 257 from virtualelephant.com. And in this next video of my Cloud Transformation series, we are going to discuss in detail the 3 phases of performing a maturity assessment to help you along your journey as you strive to accomplish your cloud transformation initiatives. Let's get started. So far in this series, we've discussed what a cloud transformation is and why it's going to be important for you as an IT leader, whether you're an enterprise architect, a CIO, or a CTO, to be able to perform a cloud transformation in 2024 and beyond. Secondly, we talked about how we as leaders need to determine ways to be able to take our vision and marry it with our execution and bring those two things together so that we can be successful in our cloud transformation initiatives. And finally, we've discussed the cloud operating model as a framework to allow us to be able to accomplish this cloud transformation and how it can help us structure everything that we're doing within these initiatives to be able to drive progress and to be able to move forward together as an organization. Now, as part of that cloud operating framework, and in that video, I discussed and mentioned that we're going to need to be able to determine what we've been very good at operationally and where our weaknesses or where we struggle within our organization to be able to transform both the people, the processes, and the technology to be able to be successful with a cloud transformation. The maturity assessment is going to be a way for you as an IT leader to be able to figure out where to focus your efforts initially so that you can have some quick wins and be able to drive some operational efficiencies within your organizations so that everyone can understand that this initiative is actually very much possible to accomplish, to be able to get those quick wins so that they start to build their confidence as they work through the difficulties of executing a cloud transformation. So I've personally been conducting these types of maturity assessments for the last 6 years in various forms and in various iterations as part of my day job at VMware prior to the Broadcom acquisition. Now, initially, I helped develop we called it a production readiness assessment as part of VMware's strategy to develop SaaS services to be able to help those engineering teams understand what was going to be necessary for them to have in place, both from an engineering and an operations perspective, to be able to accomplish this SaaS transformation we were undergoing as a company at the time. Now, over those last 6 years, I've learned a lot as I've executed dozens and dozens of these maturity assessments, both for fledgling companies, fledgling services, and services and companies that are very mature and have been involved and far down the road in their own cloud or digital transformation process. And regardless of where you might be as an organization on this path, a maturity assessment is going to be something that you want to incorporate quarterly into your plan so that as you start to look quarter over quarter, you can see where you're making improvements and where you need to continue to invest resources, time, and money as you execute this strategy. So over these last 6 years, again, I've really kind of divided this up into 3 phases. First, we have the discovery phase. Then we have the evaluation phase, and then we have the assessment phase. And this is all part of this digital assessment or maturity assessment that we're going to be performing. So first off, let's start with the discovery phase and what it entails. First and foremost, you're going to have to find a maturity assessment model that you can use. Now, there are many consulting firms and partners out there that have their own version of a maturity assessment. And I have my own, which I've published up on Virtual Elephant for you to be able to see as a sample of what you might want to be able to execute and leverage as part of your maturity assessment. Once you've decided which one you're going to do, you're going to need to gather all of your teams together, both your engineering and your operations teams, and you need to be able to figure out which portions of that maturity assessment each of these teams are going to need to focus and perform the legwork up front to understand how they can answer those questions. So this is the information gathering phase as part of this discovery. So these teams are going to go out, they're going to look at the questionnaire, and they're going to begin to find the answers to each of those questions. And they're going to be able to gather that data together so that when it comes time to move into phase 2, everyone brings that data together. Now, this discovery phase can last from days to weeks. Now, I want to stress that it's important to put a time boundary on this discovery phase. Set the expectation with your teams that they have so many days or a week or 2 weeks to accomplish the task of gathering all of the information based off of the assessment that you're going to be executing against and bringing it all together. Now, once that discovery phase is completed, now we're going to go into phase 2, which is the evaluation phase. The evaluation phase is now where all of the teams are going to come together, and hopefully you're going to sit in a room. Now, I've done these virtually, I've done these in person, and I'll be honest with you, whenever we can get everyone in a room dedicated to this task for 4 hours or 8 hours, depending on how long you think it might take, whenever we get everyone in a room, it seems to go better. Everyone's attention is on what we are accomplishing that day, and they are focused on the maturity assessment. And it also allows and fosters better conversations between the different organizations as we go through each question and start to grade ourselves on where we're at. When we have this open conversation with everyone and allow everyone to feel as though they can be honest with how they feel both themselves, their teams, and the organization overall are on their maturity path, the better off that you're going to be as an IT leader later on when we move into the assessment phase. So hopefully you're also, in addition to being in person and having everyone in a room, hopefully you're having this discussion led by an external or a third-party individual or representative. Now, one of the things that I've found, and one of the reasons that we did this initially at VMware and had it driven outside of the engineering organizations themselves, is when you have a neutral third party come in, there are no biases. So one of the challenges that we've talked about, one of the barriers that we talked about in the previous video, is that organizations have inherent biases. Everyone's going to always feel like I've been doing it this way for X number of years, so it's the right way to do it. But really, when we're performing this maturity assessment, we need to be honest with ourselves so that we can understand where do we truly have gaps, where are we truly being successful, so that we can address those things, grade ourselves, and then come up with a strategy and a game plan to move forward so that we can ultimately be successful with this cloud transformation. This maturity assessment shouldn't just be something that you do as a checkbox to say, oh yeah, sure, we did a maturity assessment, we know what we're good at, we know what we're bad at. No, we need to be gathering insight from this data and executing on it, and we're going to talk about that more in a moment. But hopefully you're having someone like myself or another enterprise architect or an external partner come in and lead these discussions to be able to ask probing questions as we're grading ourselves and evaluating ourselves on each one of the line items or questions as part of this maturity assessment. Now, this individual won't have those biases so that they can help you be able to really understand where you're good, where you're bad, and where you need to improve. Now, once we've gone through this iteration, and I've seen this take anywhere from 2, 4, 6, 8 hours, really never seen it take more than a day. But once you focus in on this and you evaluate and you go through this exercise, then we're going to be able to move to the assessment phase. And we're going to be able to understand where we are doing well and where we need to improve. So this is crucial, this third phase, this assessment phase. So now we've done all of our discovery. We've sat down together, we've been honest and evaluated ourselves on where we are today across the myriad of questions and myriad of categories within the cloud operating model that we're evaluating our maturity against, okay? And we've been honest with ourselves, most importantly. I can't stress that enough. You've got to be honest with yourself as a team, as an individual, and as an organization. And now we're going to assess ourselves. Now, the important thing to remember, and this is one of those struggles, right? When we think assessment, when we think grades, it has that negative connotation to it. But this shouldn't be a negative. We shouldn't see this as, oh, you're doing something wrong, so now I've got to worry about getting fired. This is not what this is about. This is about helping us as an organization be able to move forward together to accomplish our strategic goals. So here in the assessment, we are going to be giving ourselves grades or levels on each one of these questions. Now, typically I do 5 levels, 1 being very immature and 5 being, wow, there's really nothing more that we could do in this category to be more mature. Okay, and you're going to find throughout the questions that you're going to have a variance across those 5 levels. And getting a 1 on something doesn't mean that you're failing. It just might mean that you haven't focused on that area before. And that's an area where we should be dedicating some time, energy, and resources. So again, we're going to go through, we've evaluated ourselves, we've given our grades. Now we're going to look at these things holistically, and we're going to say, okay, where are we doing well? Let's list the top 5 things that we've done really well so far. Okay, now let's list maybe the 5 things that we're doing the least well, or the 5 areas maybe that we've never focused on before. And then you as a group are going to sit down, and again, you're going to work together to say, okay, over the next quarter, or maybe over the next 2 quarters, this is where we're going to focus our time and energy. Maybe it's enablement. Maybe it's we need to send people out to get new training. Maybe it's like, oh, we need to focus on lifecycle management or patching operations, or maybe we need to focus on, more streamlined blue-green deployments. Or maybe it's we need to focus on the amount of noise within our alerting system so that we can drive down the amount of noise so that when there is an alert, we can focus in better operationally on where we're having a challenge within our systems. And at the end of the day, this assessment should give you an idea of where you should be focusing your time. And you should absolutely be coming away with a set of action items as a group. Action items as the CIO or the CTO, action items as the managers and directors within your organizations, perhaps around enablement, making sure that your teams have the time dedicated to new trainings. And then as engineers and operators, SREs, we should have a set of action items around where we are going to spend our time, maybe in our PI planning or a sprint planning. And we're going to focus those items in our sprint planning for those tasks that we've identified as areas that we need to be focused on based on our assessment. It's also important to remember that this isn't a one and done, okay? We're not freshman basketball players going to college for 1 year trying to get into the NBA. We have to constantly evaluate ourselves, and we need to be doing this on a regular cadence. So this needs to become part of the inherent DNA within our organizations, these maturity assessments. So once we've completed these 3 phases and we've identified those areas and those action items that we're going to focus in on for the next quarter or 2 quarters, we need to immediately set a date for when the next maturity assessment is going to take place. Now, follow-on or subsequent maturity assessments might not take the same level of effort as this first one is going to take you. You might find that for the follow-up ones, maybe every other quarter, all you're going to do is really focus in and reevaluate yourselves on those areas that you identified as being the ones that you're going to focus your time on instead of the entire maturity assessment. And then maybe every second and fourth quarter, those are the ones where you're going to go through the full list and you're going to say, okay, where are we today? And you want to make sure that you are going through the full list on a semi-regular basis, because you want to make sure that you're not falling behind on those areas where maybe you said previously you thought you were very mature or that you did score very highly on. So again, this is going to be a never-ending process, kind of like a lot of things within our IT organizations, like our architecture, like our enterprise architectures. These should be revisited regularly so that we can continually see and grade ourselves on how we're doing. Now, ultimately, your success as an IT leader, whether you're a CIO or a CTO, can directly be tied back to these maturity assessments. This will give you data to understand how are you doing and how are your organizations and teams doing within this cloud transformation initiative that you've set forth. And you can be able to take this data to be able to show over time trend lines, to be able to say, listen, we are improving. We are executing on everything that we set forth. And then you can take that data and report it back to your CEO and your board to be able to say, yes, again, we knew this was going to be a multi-year process. We knew that this was going to take time to be able to be truly successful and get to our end goal. But let me show you the data of how we are doing over time. Let me show you that we are moving along. We are executing on this path so that ultimately we can see that light at the end of the tunnel and we can know ultimately that we are going to be successful in this cloud transformation. If you're looking for a maturity assessment that you can implement within your organizations, please check out the link below where I've linked a sample of the maturity assessment that I've developed on the Virtual Elephant website. And if you're interested in more information and having a deeper conversation on how I might be able to help you as an organization perform this type of maturity assessment, please reach out to me directly. If you're enjoying this content on cloud transformation or wanting to learn more about enterprise architecture, the VCDX program, or Kubernetes in general, please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Virtual Elephant. Make sure you turn on the notifications and hit that like button, and let me know what you think of this video by leaving a comment below. As always, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn at Chris Mutchler or on Twitter at Chris Mutchler. And I look forward to talking to you next time.